And let's see, you're invited to use the chat as your notebook or whatever. So I have somebody who's texting me that they don't have the link, so I'm going to take care of that. Ed and I have known each other or of each other for how many years, Steve?
I'd say 30.
Yep.
My
And
goodness, really?
I don't know how we got that old. So then, whatchamacallit, Steve used to work with Ed very closely in Washington, D.C. when we were working down there. And then once we moved up here, Ed has been our IT guy, our virtual IT guy for the past 20 odd years. So without much more ado, I'm going to let Ed introduce himself, and then we'll get started right after that.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
I wanted to thank Trish for letting me be part of this and kind of joining you folks in this discussion. I hope I can add something of value, and I'm excited about the opportunity and hope that some of these things that we are going to cover in the next half hour or so are helpful, and that you can have a lot of good takeaways from. As Trish had said, my name's Edward Coe. I go by Ed, and I own a small consulting firm, a technology consulting firm in Baltimore, Maryland. It's a suburb of Baltimore. Most all of our clients reside in Baltimore, for example, and we have a few people out of state, Trish and Steve, that we manage and that we manage their technology. And in today's world, of course, location matters less and less. And all of my employees are virtual and work out of their homes, and we're able to, as a team, provide technology support on a contract basis to all these folks. And Trish reached out because of the subject matter that she wanted to cover, and I had a few ideas and thought I'd share them with you. And I'm hoping that as I speak, that if you folks have a question, please just let me know, speak up, wave your hand, or mention something or type something in the chat, and I'll try to address it as I go. And even though there is some time set aside for Q&A, that can be that time. And if something strikes your fancy right now, or a question comes to mind right now, please feel free to say it. I guess the question of the day involves a digital legacy and organizing your affairs as they apply to your digital life as your planning end of life. And more, of course, our lives circulate through and are the result of many technologies that we're involved with on day to day. And so that's the topic that we're going to discuss and see if we can't hash out some of the confusion. I've had a number of conversations with my own clients, my family, and I recently had a brother-in-law pass just a month ago. And we've had first-hand experience with many of the topics that we're talking about. I'm going to try to make the discussion less technical, even though I deal with technology every day. I don't believe the language has to be technical to discuss this. And I'm hoping to offer not just concepts of this digital legacy, but also a real practical guide. Some of the things that we can do, and action items, for example, of what we can proceed to do after this discussion's over. I guess we should define what digital legacy is. I define it, and please tell me if you differ, but it's really your footprint as it resides in the digital world. How you interact with your computer, how you interact with the internet, and the information that you store and rely upon there, as well as the services that you take advantage of there, and how that information is something that you track and you regularly reference. That's your digital footprint, so to speak. That's managed and maintained by a number of things, but the idea is, will it be something that can easily be explained, transferred to those who might serve as your digital executor. I'm making a point to say that term since it was included in the reference material that Trish had provided prior to today. As we plan out our end of life, plan out the procedures for end of life, we included among those is to designate a digital executor, and I'll make reference to that digital executor, a loved one, a trusted colleague that is going to perform some of these functions as they relate to technology at end of life. And I'm hoping that everyone has a digital executor who is going to be savvy enough to be able to navigate some of the things that we're going to talk about, because it will be necessary for them to be able to gather that information, access that information, and organize it on your behalf. So digital executor then is really typically going to be a loved one. It's typically going to be somebody that you have that has perhaps power of attorney, or someone that you trust enough with valuable information. The first area that I really want to stress that most people don't understand or know about is how important your email address is. This is something that typically should start the conversation, even more so than the idea of using passwords. Many people believe that their digital presence, their activity on the internet or on their computer involves passwords, and they do. But I'm finding more and more that your identity digitally circulates around your email address. Now, I don't know if folks are regularly using their email accounts for communication. Perhaps you're not, but rather you use it for exchanging email with your loved ones or your associates. Your email address not only becomes a method of communication, via email, of course, but it also becomes your identity. It becomes almost your digital social security number, so to speak. And so when websites, when other parties, when the government might want to identify you, they might identify you certainly by your social security number, but oftentimes it will be your email address that is the keystone of your identity and a starting place for determining that you are you. So if you folks are not using an email address in that fashion, that might be one of the first action items that you take upon to consider a primary email address. Now, we all have lots of email addresses, probably, if we use them. We'll have a work or a personal one and maybe navigate between several. I found that it might be more helpful to designate one of those addresses as primary. I have found among clients that they might have 5 or 6, and they're all associated, they're all on my phone somewhere, Ed, is what I hear. And I get mail from here and there, and I have this address from that time and this address from that time. It makes a lot of sense to consolidate those into a single address. Even though it might not seem as though it's worth the time and effort and energy, it really is. Mostly because of what I said a moment ago, in that your email address is becoming more and more the social security number of your digital identity. Oftentimes, if you have multiple email addresses, say you have an iCloud one, say you have a Gmail one, or one from work, they can be, after you designate a primary one, they can be set to forward messages to your primary account so that you're only checking one on your computer or you're only checking one account on your phone. It is a little cumbersome for you to have multiple email addresses and have to chase down the messages that arrive at different mailboxes. And to have a primary one is going to be a lot easier, not only for you now as you use it, but for those who must be working after you've passed in order to collect information necessary to be your digital executor. Are there any questions about that? Does anyone agree, disagree? I see a comment about as a business or personal. I'm sorry, is that something else? That's something else. I'm sorry.
No, I was
I
just
thought it,
talking
I thought it was a
I was
note about
talking
me.
to Trish. Yeah,
Got it.
I
Sorry.
was
Sorry
just
about
talking to
that.
Trish. That's okay.
Sorry about that.
So, Ed, we have in our business, so we have, I think, as you know, Google Suite, for business. And then we have, several that are maybe info at Kingdom Commons, different ones. Now, they all are affiliated and come into, primarily, I think they're directed to Steve's email, so that it's one place. Is that a good practice?
It is a good practice. I'm just encouraging the consolidation of email accounts so that we don't have messages strewn across multiple email boxes. I believe that it's cumbersome to manage, and I'll mention a little bit later on why that might be a little bit of a disadvantage. I also feel as though when you are being contacted for the recovery of information, you were looking to see what a password was, what this information was, what was my account number. The communication is often going to be related to an email address that it's associated with you. And if you don't know what address the IRS knows about you, that you have, or that Medicare.gov knows that you have, you're often lost as to how that information will arrive. But if you now have set aside a primary address where those important information can be sent, where that important information can be sent, you'll be struggling less to be given that information or offer that information. If you reset a password on a website, for example, what email address will that password reset invitation go to? If you're unsure because you have multiple addresses, that's not always the best position to be in. Yes, ma'am.
I have a similar question actually. I do have my own email, but my husband and I share a Google account. And I know that drives my kids crazy because they say that each person should have their own, like Google account.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering if that might be something that could cause issues if one or both of us passed.
It certainly
It's under
could.
his name.
Yeah, I would recommend that a separate account be created and that you begin using one, not because of your own independence or because of your own preferences or something like that, but really in the fact that a Gmail account, an email account, any email account is much more than an environment just for exchanging email messages. More and more, it becomes a repository for a lot of information that's valuable to you. When someone sends you an order confirmation from something that you purchased, when a bank sends you a bank statement, that information stays in your mail account, especially if it's a cloud mail account like you're mentioning in Gmail, or an Outlook account online at Microsoft 365. I'm not so much talking about mail that arrives, say, into your computer on a program that lives on your computer. I'm referring more to mail services where all that mail resides simply online and you access it via a web browser like Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge. When that information begins to accumulate in your mail account, it becomes an excellent record for items that are important to you. And not only that, it becomes like a searchable database. So that resource is going to be valuable, not just for you, but the loved ones that survive you. And is going to be not only organized there for you, it becomes a searchable database. So if someone wants to find information about your high school yearbook, for example, because that's necessary, it might be in there with the keyword search. And we've done no preparation work other than simply storing it in our email accounts and allowing the mail service to index that information for us and make it a valuable database of much of our affairs. So yes, I would. Yes, ma'am.
I have a Gmail account that I never use. Should I close it?
I don't think that there's any reason that you want it to be closed other than the fact that it might prove to be a security issue if, for example, the password were compromised and it contained valuable information. That would be the only reason. If you don't find that it's connected to any service like your bank or your credit union, for example, I don't see any reason why it can't remain open. And I also think that, or I encourage you to use it for a particular purpose. If you have the need for an email account, you might find that you can use it as an apex, not an apex, but I'll call it let's just call it a primary account to organize, say, a handful of others that you might not use. Gmail is becoming more and more of a universal email environment. And if you find that you have a work account, and if you find that you have an account that from way long ago at yahoo.com, for example, it might make sense to consolidate those lesser, say, secondary accounts into a primary one where you are able to just check one area, one mailbox for all the pertinent information. So it
Well,
could serve in that role.
I'm sorry, my
sorry.
Hotmail is my primary account.
Okay.
So how would I link my Gmail to that?
Each email service has the ability to forward messages to another account. And so you would just simply choose the secondary one to forward to a primary one. You can also choose whether or not messages remain there that are forwarded or are deleted once forwarded. So that would be entirely up to you.
Okay, that's good. Good.
But
Very
I
good.
do recommend that consolidation rather than leaving underused mail accounts here and there unused.
Okay.
Once we establish ourselves with an email account, it's important, of course, to assure its security, because it is such a keystone type of technology or digital footprint. It's very important to protect. If there is one area that is most vulnerable to identity theft, it's your mail account, because so much of your other digital assets, so much of your logins and passwords and other things that you do on the internet and on your computer can be linked or recovered by your email account. And so if there were a bad actor out there who was interested in wreaking havoc in your life and was going to be involved in some sort of identity theft, they were going to probably start with your email address. So that would be very important to protect. And I know that there's a lot of discussion of having a complex one or a different one for every place that you visit, and make sure you keep track of it and use this tool and that tool. I know that most of us aren't going to do that because it's complicated. Our lives are complicated enough. We can barely find our car keys. So I'm trying to simplify that. I try to simplify that for my clients quite often. And I think that there are some good techniques to make sure that our password hygiene is good and that we know what we're doing when someone says, oh, what's the password for this? That we can provide them a good solution when we're prompted with that. This is just something I thought was kind of fun, and I think it's an interesting place to go. I'm going to put it in chat right now, and you folks can look at it now or later, but there's a website that allows you to type in a password that you might be using currently or that you might intend to use, and it will tell you how secure it is and how long a computer designed to hack passwords or guess passwords would take to guess what your password is. And it ranges from instantly to, billions of years. We definitely want to be on the billions of years side when we're thinking of a complex password. I'm, unlike other people, don't feel as though you need to come up with a different password for every website that you visit. I know that that's been preached to us. And I know that that's also the start of people feeling overwhelmed by the passwords they manage. But I actually believe that if you maintain one or two complex passwords that you can commit to memory, you're often going to be protected enough as you interact with technology. If you ask, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
That's
ma'am.
fine.
I thought I heard somebody
Yes,
else.
no, you're addressing a group of elders whose chance of our memories declining is, I think, 50%. So I'm sorry, I kind of disagree with you.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to let's see. I'm trying to explain a technique or a strategy that will tax our memories less than more.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm hoping to describe here. And the first step of that, to make the demands on our memory less, is rather than trying to memorize or even document a whole list of passwords that we have for the various sites on the internet or other things that we access, I would recommend that we just simply have one or two passwords that we use for everything.
Okay.
And
Mm.
that is going to be in direct disagreement with 9 out of 10 people who are in my position that you speak with. But I'm going to be the lone wolf here and say that that is an effective way of managing your passwords. Having one or two passwords that you commit to memory that are complex. And when I say complex, I don't mean hot dog or baseball. I mean passwords that are like, I met my wife in Cleveland. Because most passwords allow you to create sentences with spaces and punctuation as your password. Most people don't realize that, but most sites, most areas that accept passwords will accept a sentence like that that's easily committed to memory, but is complex enough not to be able to be hacked. If you use the website that I just gave you and type in a sentence like, my husband has yellow hair, you'll find how long it would take a computer to hack a password that's just simply that easy to remember sentence.
Wow. Nadine, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a
I'm
question
sorry.
um, about an email address that I had to abandon because I couldn't remember the password or the.
I see.
Is that a concern?
Well, it's certainly a concern, but if you can't remember the passwords, it's there's not much that we can do about it, other than the fact that if it does contain information that's personal in nature or has account numbers or social security numbers or addresses or even phone
Mhm.
numbers that you're concerned about, there certainly are steps that you can take to try to recover it. Most larger email providers have a procedure of recovering and proving your identity and recovering these passwords if you wanted to expend a little bit of time and effort. So a little bit of Googling will allow you to find those out. And if you'd like, I can try to send you some resources of how to make that possible, how to make that recovery possible.
Thank you.
That would be great,
Um,
Ed. And I'm thinking of, gosh, I think back in the day, I know I had an AOL account. I have no idea what the password would be at this point. I think I started a Hotmail account and I think I started a Yahoo account. But
Right.
once I came
We
to
all have done that.
Gmail, yeah. So it's okay that they're out there because they probably don't have very pertinent information in them.
So let's say that you have a complex password in mind that you will try to use. It should contain upper and lowercase letters. It may contain a punctuation mark, and it may contain a number or upper and lower case. Ideally, it'll contain all those things. And yes, it might be difficult to commit to memory initially, but I think that a complex password like what I just described, I went to college in Tennessee, as a password, once you can arrive at a password like that and begin using it in real life, I think that you'll find that it's very easy to commit to memory and easy to use and easy to type out when required. Now, that isn't the end all and be all of password hygiene. This type of complex password is best paired when you use a password manager. A password manager is a program that gets installed on your computer. It's an app that gets installed on your mobile device. It's a web service that you log into on the internet. They're all the same. One company can provide all of these things. I use a password manager that I'll type in the chat called 1Password. It was recently selected by New York Times as the one to use as far as password managers are concerned. A password manager is not software that just simply remembers your passwords. That is the most elementary form of thinking about a password manager. What some of the best things that a password manager does, aside from remembering the passwords, is when you go to a website where you are either creating a new or changing a password, it actually recommends a password for you to use.
Oh,
It will create its own complex password and fill in the blank for you. And you won't recognize it, nor will you remember it. You'll just see a large string of characters. But if you hit save, that website will now be able to identify you with that information. And each time you revisit that website, that complicated password will be entered for you. Now, is there a reason for you to remember it, for you to know it by heart, for you to be able to type it if necessary? No, there's not a reason for you to remember it, because that's what the manager is for. You are delegating the task of remembering and typing in passwords to this utility. It's not meant for it to remember passwords like hot dog and baseball, or even I met my wife in Cleveland. Doesn't need to even remember that. But remember, password managers will require at least an initial or a master password so you can just use its service. And so that would be a good time to use that complex password that you have. I left my heart in San Francisco. So 1Password or similar password managers is something that I would recommend. Let me talk a little bit more about password managers because it's a big part of our discussion, and I know that we're getting a little close on time. I said that one of its advantages isn't just remembering, but also generating passwords. It will also protect us from going and visiting a wrong site. So for example, if we have an irs.gov password remembered, for example, or let's not say IRS, let's say our health plan. Let's say that we go to our insurance carrier's website because an email told us to go to our insurance carrier's website and log in. And let's say that email directed us to carefirst.com, for example, to enter in our credentials to get into our health policy. If you have recorded your CareFirst password in this password manager and you are directed to the CareFirst site, your password will automatically be entered. That's a nice thing, right? What's even nicer is if you have received a fraudulent email to take you to the incorrect website that only looks like CareFirst, your password manager won't work. Your password manager will in fact warn you that you've gone to a fraudulent site and for you not to enter the information that you normally would have. So in essence, the same password manager that was designed just to help you with your memory is now protecting us from fraudulent messages that might direct us to bad sites otherwise. The last thing that it does is this password manager helps with an important feature that I think that we should all adopt, which is 2FA or MFA. I'll write it out in the chat just to make sure that you know what I'm talking about. 2FA and MFA can generally be interchangeable, but it stands for two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication. You folks are probably already aware of it, but it's an important feature to, I wouldn't say know about, but we should know about it. More so, we should embrace it. It really is the future of how we identify, how we make ourselves known to the places that we need to prove our identity. All it means is that not only are we entering a username and password to enter into sites that we visit, say online, we're also being prompted to receive a code, say to our phones, and enter in that code. That is the second factor involved in identifying ourselves. We've probably already done it if we've gone to Facebook or Twitter or even our Gmail accounts. But that's what I'm referring to. Many people consider that to be a hassle. Like, I don't want to go through that extra step. Why do I have to get a text? Why do I need to do all these different things just to log into this silly site? We have to change that attitude, because we are now in a world where multi-factor or two-factor authentication is a part of our lives. And we should just consider it as a very important safeguard to make sure that identity theft doesn't occur. I'm going to just run through a couple of other things, and I'm going to save the rest of the time for Q&A. But please stop me or make a note if you have anything to ask about. Not only is it important to have this password manager for all of the features that I talked about, this password manager does one more important thing, and that is it allows you to create a trusted delegate or a trusted executor to take advantage, not to take advantage, to keep track of all of the information that is going to be stored there. So that person should be given that access right now. If you already have designated an executor, that person should gain access to that password manager now. And then you'll be all ready, should the unfortunate happen, where all that information is going to easily be accessible to your executor. Not only that, it's going to be organized. And that executor will be able to browse your account, your password manager account, and see all of the websites that you've normally visited and recorded and made notes in. One of the tools that Trish had provided was a checklist. It's called I'm sorry, I just want to make sure that I get the right terminology. It's called the Digital Accounts Checklist that she provided in the materials for this session. And it lists out all the different websites that one might visit, and to make sure that usernames and passwords are recorded. A password manager, in essence, would already have created that automatically as you visited site to site to site and had your password recorded automatically. Yes.
Is Google remembers some of my passwords. Is that the
Yes.
same thing?
It's similar. Google Chrome,
Right.
Google Chrome is the web browser, and one of its features is to remember passwords. Your iPhone, if you have one of its features is to remember passwords, and any browser that you use, whether it is on your mobile device or on your computer, has a feature typically built in to remember passwords. They're just trying to be helpful. They'll also remember addresses and credit card numbers too. It might come in handy from time to time, but I would recommend that you actually manually turn those features off, because you can't necessarily speak to the security of those individual password saving features and then rely upon your password manager that I talked about, that 1Password program, to take over that function for you. So for example, in my web browser on my computer, I actually say, when it says save passwords, yes or no, I say no. And I rely upon the software that I've installed to remember the passwords for me and to suggest them if necessary.
Thank you.
We touched on a number of areas. I'm wrapping up. We've touched on a number of areas related to password hygiene, what your digital legacy means, the ability to use a password manager, not only for your benefit now, but for your digital executor later on. I wanted to make sure, though, that we extended this beyond just the websites that we visit and the computer password that we might have, and also make sure that we extend our reach, so to speak, beyond, Facebook, beyond Amazon.com, and make sure that documents that we've saved on our computer are available, so that they can easily be located and opened by anyone who survives us. One excellent way of doing that is to not have documents that reside on your computer. I know that sounds a little strange, but I have been preaching for years for people not to keep important information solely on their computer, but to have a counterpart, a copy, or to store primarily their information in a cloud environment. Google allows us to do that. Anybody who has a Gmail account, anyone who has a Dropbox account, anyone who has a Microsoft 365 account has the ability not just to store their information on their hard drives on their computers, but also online. Not only is that protecting us from data loss or theft, it protects us after we pass, because no longer does our digital executor have to worry about trying to access information that lives here over on our computer or lives there on our computer. They know that a cloud storage account is responsible for storing all of that. And as I mentioned earlier, it's searchable. So if there is specific information that your survivor is looking for, they can more easily find it if it's cloud-based versus just sitting on your machine. I have a few other things that might be helpful resources that I'm going to add to the chat, and they specifically deal with some of the vendors that we talked about, Google, Facebook, and Apple. These are all websites that are accessible that will allow you to delegate others for the purposes of this digital legacy that we're describing. This is where you appoint an executor or appoint a trusted individual to be able to act on your behalf or to have access to your account when you no longer do. So there are already mechanisms in place for your survivors to easily be able to, say, post a Facebook post on your behalf after you've passed and memorialize you, or to gain access to your Gmail account because they've been set up as a delegate already, or to gain access to your MacBook or your iPhone after you've passed because they have been designated as an Apple legacy contact. Finally, if you don't mind, Trish, I'm just gonna end with just one or two sentences. I have there's sort of a plan of action, and I didn't cover some of these points, but I'm gonna list them all out in the chat, and I'll also make them available to you, Trish, if you'd wanted to forward these items to others. Let me see if I can do this a little bit better. Bear with me for 1 second, folks. I'm all done talking. I don't know why these boxes showed up on the screen. Forgive me. But if you scroll up, I've just written a bulleted list of that begins gather passwords. I'm hoping that everybody can see that. This is sort of an action list of what we just talked about, and items that you can take that you can begin working on right away, that will move you along on the topics that we discussed. I'm happy to follow up and help out with anybody who has a question either in this Q&A session or say afterwards. If you can just leave Trish your question, I'll be happy to confer with her and get you the answer that you're looking for. I appreciate your attention. That's all I had, and I'm available for questions.
Wow, wow, and wow again.
Wow.
It's like some things I knew of, you captured it so well in saying,
Good.
do I want to do that two-step authentication on everything? And then, I do have it for some things, but now I understand more. And I think I understand more, again, what you said about our email, address being an account, being a repository. I'm going to stop with my questions and remarks, but before I do, I'm going to let everybody know that a copy of the chat is going to be captured. So I'll have all the links that I'll be able to send out to you.
Thank you.
Great. I know that 2FA or MFA is a hassle for everybody, or it's a hassle it's a perceived hassle by everybody. I have found that it is not as much of a hassle in real life as many people perceive, because 2FA often includes the recognition of your location or the computer that you're using. And if you have provided that secondary code at that device in the last 24 hours to 30 days, you're unlikely going to be prompted for that secondary code.
Mhm.
It'll just be your password. So I would embrace it. That's why I chose that word. We need to move away from the idea that this is such a big hassle. And there are other technologies that are going to make this easier all coming down the road. But for right now, since that's the best method we have, 2FA, we shouldn't grimace when we're prompted to use it.
Well, I might, but I'll do it nicer.
I have a question. What do you
Yes.
think of fingerprint or thumbprint identification?
I mean, I think it's a novel way of doing things, and I'm actually going to unplug something from my computer and show it to you. And I'm going to see if the camera will capture it. This device is a USB device, and it's called a FIDO device. And I don't know if people have seen it or not. You'll notice that on the very top of it, and it's very small, and I don't think the camera captures it very well, but it is a push button at the top. This USB device, when plugged into my computer, allows me to identify myself, and it actually enters in a password that some websites accept as an identity, as a two-factor, as the second factor in identifying myself. So when I visit Bank of America, I not only put in my name and password, it'll say, press that button now. And when I do, that's the only way that I'm let into my bank account. So while I think that they're a good idea, they certainly have their disadvantages, and they are mostly disadvantageous when you have to share this information with others. For example, my accountant who needs access to my bank account can't use this. And I don't know that it's going to be easy to use should my lawyer need to use it, say if I had an accident. So while it might be helpful in some respects for security, I don't think that it's all that practical for every occasion.
And you don't think FIDO is practical for every occasion? Is that what you're saying?
I don't think so. I think its main application is for just a higher measure of security. And not necessarily, and it falls short in say our context, the context of this discussion, because it doesn't necessarily lend itself well to a digital executor, especially if that's lost or misplaced. It would just lead to its own problem.
Yes, yes.
You
We
keep it-
in our. Go ahead.
I
Go
was
ahead,
just wondering,
Christine.
Ed, do you keep FIDO plugged into your USB port all the time? And then
I certainly do. Yes, I
and
certainly
all
do,
you have to
because
do is press it when you need to press it, right?
right. But one caveat is the website itself that you're trying to log into must support it
Right.
in order for it to be effective. Now, by the way, 1Password supports it as one of its means of authentication. So when you start using the 1Password service, if you do, or a service similar to it, there's things called LastPass, for example, and others. One of its ways of identifying you later on is by means of that FIDO device. So it can be helpful, but there really isn't just one tool that beats them all or is better than all the others or stands head and shoulders above. It's really just several layers that you're hoping to use to prevent against fraud. It's a team, in other words. It's a team of technology that's helping you out more so than just one particular piece of technology.
Interesting.
And what about facial ID?
Facial ID is used on your iPhone, and I consider that mostly a convenience measure as opposed to because of facial ID, I'm more secure than I was before. That's certainly not the case. It's just that facial ID makes it so that it's easier for us to interact with the security measures or requirements around us without having to necessarily do tedious things all the time, like use a iPhone keyboard to type in a complicated password. So it's more for security. I'm sorry, it's more for convenience as opposed to security. I don't think that it's a bad thing, but it should be seen in the correct context.
Mhm.
A lot of people feel as though if you have Wi-Fi technology, why do you need cords and cables to connect to the internet? And the fact of the matter is, cords and cables are faster and more reliable. But if you're sitting out by the pool, it's not, because it's inconvenient. And that's where wireless comes in. It's a function of convenience over and above a better way of connecting to the internet.
I'm feeling awfully vulnerable right now.
Well, I think that's why I gave sort of an action items list at the very end, because I feel as though if you follow those steps and you use the resources that Trish had provided, and that you systematically go through and visit the websites that you typically navigate to, along with an installed password manager, that you can reinvigorate your security, so to speak, by perhaps changing the passwords that you've traditionally used to ones that are automatically generated for you and remembered by your password manager. Really, when the biggest security breaches come with email that is considered phishing, and you folks have heard about email phishing with the PH. That is the largest vector of of security vulnerability anywhere. The government. I mean, when you hear about some company or some country that's been infiltrated security-wise, it's very likely a mail that was sent to some middle manager who decided to click on that mail message, and when it asked, "Oh, I need you to put in your password so that you can see this picture," they've put in some very important information that was used in a way that they didn't intend. That is a successful phishing attempt, and usually the cause of great compromise. If you use two-factor authentication, that's less likely to occur. And if you use a password manager with a complex password that you didn't even create, it's far less likely to occur.
I always keep that from happening by never clicking on anything in an email, period.
I would agree with that. That's a very good practice. There is no reason, if you receive a message from your bank that says there's something wrong with your account, click here to fix it. There's no real reason that you have to click it. Just visit your bank.
Yep.
Just visit your bank website because you already know it.
Yep.
There's no point in following someone else's direction to go to your bank site.
Or just log in through a browser as opposed to clicking on a link.
That's exactly right. You log in by yourself via the browser the way that you meant to do it. Even when someone says, "Hey, buy this new product," there's no real reason to follow their link. Just visit Amazon or visit wherever and search for the product yourself.
And I have a dilemma right now going on about I'm getting these phishing emails from PayPal. And so, I don't click on anything, but I forward it to, PayPal's phishing thing. But I've been trying to figure out how to get to, PayPal and say electronically and, stop it. But I don't trust anywhere anymore.
It's not PayPal that's producing it, unfortunately. They're bad actors that are creating those messages that are meant to appear like PayPal. You're probably being emailed by Eastern European countries right now, and it's not PayPal at all. There is one more resource that I'll provide in the chat. This is an article from my website that I had written, way back in 2017. Some of the information is a little bit outdated, but it mentions some of the topics that we that we discussed here, and talked about password hygiene and maybe best practices as you're visiting websites and things. I think it's worth reading and will help in this discussion. But there are a couple of other tips in there that I think are important. So please do use a password manager. I think it resolves many of the dilemmas that we often face when it comes to just having technology overload. Do not open up a Word document on your computer where all your passwords are stored. 50% of my clients still do that.
Huh.
When I ask them for their password. Another area that I didn't touch on, and something that occurred recently because I told you that my brother-in-law had passed last month. One of the first things that my sister asked me about was, I know that we have hundreds and hundreds of photos with Peter in them, but I don't know where they are. And we all keep our photos in different places, right? So I'm not saying that they should be here or they should be there. We keep them in many different places. Some are physical, some are digital. I would recommend something, an asset that critical, like photographs, be organized ahead of time. And that we use a cloud technology to be able to store those photos. Google has a very good repository for photos. Dropbox does, Microsoft does, Facebook does. A place where you can organize and upload all the photos that might be in physical form, as well as maybe scattered around different services. You could import or centralize them. That's going to be very important for the people that survive you. Photographs. We don't think of that, until later. But what a resource that would be worthy of your time to organize.
Are you able, if you have your photos in a photo file that's not Google, can you transfer them over to Google?
You certainly can, yes. Google provides you with easy tools to upload that information if they are in digital form already, say residing on your computer's hard drive.
Fantastic, thank you.
Sure. Sure. I still talk with clients, for example, who are using an old computer for lots of years, and I say, it's a good time to upgrade and get a new computer for you. It's Christmas or it's New Year's, and I'll say, oh no, I can't. This computer, it has all of my information on it.
Oh,
Mm.
I'm hoping that after our discussion today, we can see the short-sightedness of that sentence.
yeah.
So if everything was
Yeah.
in the cloud, like in a Dropbox or something, when you get your new computer, you just log into Dropbox or your Google account or whatever from the new computer, and everything is there, correct? Is that what
Amen.
you're saying?
Amen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I love it.
Amen. Amen. You know that you've reached a good place to be if you leave your computer in the car, in the airplane seat in front of you, and you say, shucks, I'm out, $800, but all I have to do is buy a new computer and have all my information. That's a good place to be.
And hopefully,
Steve, you would say preach. Go ahead, Janice.
I was just going to say, and hopefully the old computer was password protected or something.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I think we could probably bring you back in a couple of months.
Oh, absolutely.
And all of us to, part of the work that we do in the workshop series, one of the wonderful things that I get feedback on is how we keep each other accountable as we go through the 6 weeks. It's, in whatever form, but we feel the progress. We appreciate the movement and the success. So, Ed, maybe we can talk later about maybe in a couple of months or so to do that, and maybe there's other stuff that you weren't able to get to. But this was an incredible primer.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
And we will, as I mentioned, we're recording this as a video, so all of us can go back when I post it on the Substacks, and you'll be alerted with an email.
Perfect.
Be able to go back, and then I'm also have the chat saved as well, and I've also captured all the links otherwise wise. So at any point, any of you can say, oh, I thought I had that link. Remind me what that was, and I'll have it all. In fact, I'll try and post it when I post the video, which probably won't happen till next week, because we were just telling Ed that all fingers and toes across that we're going to get fiber to the home next week. And so, yeah, so it'll be fast service, and we can
wonderful.
do what Ed said as far as backing up more to the cloud and all that good stuff.
That's great. Great news.
It is. Okay, I only have one announcement, and you'll be hearing from me. I'm sure you're not worried about that because you hear from me all the time. But the next office hour will be in February. It'll be on the third Wednesday, which is the 19th. And our guest is to be announced. They're all going back and forth on availability. So I'll let you know what that is.
It was
Thank you
great
for
meeting
doing this,
everybody.
Fred.
Thank you
Absolutely.
so much.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for
Nice to see
inviting
you,
me
Ed.
in.
It's very
Informative.
informative.
You're
You too,
welcome.
Steve.
Hmm.
Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot,
Thank
folks.
you.
Stay warm.
Thank you.
Yes.